How much do I need to earn to start investing in property? That's what we're going to cover in this video today. Hi, I'm Ed McKnight from Opes Partners, and we're here to help you become successful property investors right here in New Zealand. And one of the most common questions we get is, well, how much do I need to earn in terms of income so that I can start investing in property? And the trouble is, it is different for each individual person, which is what we're going through today. Now, that's a bit different from deposits because deposits are simple. They're the same for everyone. You need a 20% deposit if you're going to invest in a new build property from a developer off the plans, 30% if you're buying an existing property on the open market. But that's not the same for income because the banks will stress test your mortgage application in 4 different ways. First of all, they're going to look at any existing lending you have, that's your home loan or any other investment properties that you've got, and they're going to look at your mortgages, not at today's interest rate, which might be 2.3%, but at 5.8% and on principal and interest. So if you've got a very large personal mortgage, you're going to need more income than somebody who doesn't or has a very small mortgage in order to get your application approved for your next investment property. Similarly, next up, they're going to look at any credit cards, overdrafts, revolving credits that you've got in place, and even if you're not using them, they're going to test you as if they're maxed out and you're making the minimum repayments. So if you've got a whole heap of credit cards, if you want to get your mortgage application approved for an investment property, then you're going to need more income than someone who's only got one credit card or a very small limit. Next up, we've got minimum living expenses. So the bank has some calculations about what they'd expect that it's going to take for you to live based on how many people you've got in your household. So if you've got 15 kids, again, you're going to need more income than someone who's only got one. And lastly, they're going to look at the rental income, the income that your investment properties are expected to generate. And they're going to take off 25% of that in order to account for things like rates, insurance, maintenance, all the other sorts of expenses that you're likely going to have to pay when you take on this investment property. So now that we know that, let's go through and see how, if we play around with some of these numbers, it would affect the minimum income you'd need so you can get that mortgage application approved. So this is the first time we've ever seen a calculator that takes all of these things that the bank is looking at into account in order to figure out that minimum income you need. So let's go through this. Let's say that you want to purchase a $500,000 investment property and say that earns maybe $400, or let's go for $450 a week. Let's say your personal mortgage, that might be $300,000, and maybe you've got a partner and one child and you're a 2-car household. Well, what that's going to mean based on these figures is you're going to need $103,000 or $104,000 as a minimum base in order to get that mortgage application approved. Now, of course, this might not be your personal situation, but you can use this calculator, which we're going to link in the description below, so you can figure out that minimum income for you. But what I've got to answer that question and to give you an idea about the minimum income that you might actually need, I've got 3 different case studies for you of different situations to see how they stack up. First of all, let's meet Mary. She's 55, lives in Hamilton, and works in admin for the local mechanic shop. She is single and living alone, and she's been paying down her mortgage for a while, and so she's only got $80,000 left on that. She's got none of her kids living with her, they're all grown up, and she drives a car, which is a Toyota in this case, not that it actually makes a difference to the calculations. Now, her ambition is to purchase a $550,000 property, which is expected to earn about $500 a week. So let's put Mary's numbers in and see what the minimum income she requires is. So first of all, we said that Mary wants to purchase a $550,000 investment property, earning $500 a week. Her personal mortgage is $80K, and she has one adult living in the household, no dependent children, and it's a 1-car household. So we're estimating that the minimum income required for Mary to get going and purchase that first investment property is she's going to require $63,420. Now, what's really cool is you can actually click up here in the view charts and see where that money's going. So if we were to make some assumptions around the term of Mary's mortgage and we were to adapt some of that, we think we could get that down to about $5,600 per year if we needed to. Her personal living expenses would be about $15K, $4K for the car, and then also we've got the bank assessed expenses on that investment property. Now this says $19,000 here, but we wouldn't expect that Mary would actually have to pay it for it. Remember, this is just what the investment property would cost if all of those test assumptions that we talked about at the start came to fruition. So that's if the interest rate went from about 2.3% up to 5.8%, she was making principal and interest payments rather than interest-only payments, and at the same time she had 25% of that rent not actually there. So in actual fact, the cash flow would probably be neutral in that she's not actually putting anything towards that investment property, but the bank needs to see that she's got the income in order to be able to cover that if she needed to. And we've also got a contingency in there as well, because we know that banks are being quite sticky at the moment, so we want that level of comfort in the calculator. Now let's meet Jake. Jake lives in Auckland with his partner, and they both work in advertising. So he's married, living with his partner. They've got a personal mortgage of $400K. They've got 2 kids, Harry and Sam, and they're a 2-car household driving a Lexus and a Mazda. Again, not that it actually matters. Their ambition is to purchase an $800,000 investment property, and we expect that that's probably going to rent for about $730 a week. So let's see what the minimum income would be. So first of all, we said that the investment property that Jake wants to buy is $800,000, and we expect that that's going to rent for $730 per week. Now, their personal mortgage is a bit higher than Mary's. It's $400,000. They're a 2-adult household with 2 kids and 2 cars. Now, that's where we'd expect the minimum income required for Jake and his partner would be $136,000 between the 2 of them. Now, that's about an extra $70,000 more than what Mary wanted, because the ambitions are different and the personal circumstances are different as well. So looking at that $70K difference between Jake and Mary really shows how changing your personal circumstances impacts the minimum income that's required so you can start investing. Now, I want to go through one more scenario as well to answer the question, well, what's the minimum income someone just starting out would generally need? And to do this, I want to talk to you about Nicole. Now, Nicole lives in Auckland. She's just started working. She's 25 and is flatting currently. But her income only has to cover her own living expenses. So we would treat this as if she's living alone. She's paying $250 a week in rent. She's got no kids. They're a long way off. And she's got 1 car. Now, her ambition is to purchase an entry-level $450,000 property, which we expect is probably going to rent for $410 a week. So let's start by putting in the property that Nicole wants to buy. We said it's a $450,000 property that's going to earn $410 a week, no personal mortgage because she hasn't got a property yet, 1 adult in the household, no kids, and 1 car. Now, usually we would say the minimum income required based on these numbers is $51K or just over. But remember, Nicole is paying $250 a week in rent. Now, I've put that over on the next page. So if you are renting, come over here and just pop your rent per week in, and you'll see that Nicole's minimum income that she's got to need to get going is just under $69,000. It's actually $68,722 in order for her to get going. And that would generally be that minimum income that we'd expect that somebody just starting out would require. Now, in order to make this calculator simple and usable, we've made quite a few assumptions here. So we've assumed there's no credit card debt, no personal debt. We're assuming you've got no hire purchases and that you are just living off the minimum expenses that the bank would usually require. Now, because that's not always going to be the case, we have put some contingencies in here. But what I just want to get across is that if you see a number here, say that the minimum income it says is $80,000 and you're earning $100K, I also don't want you to get too excited, because the only way to know whether you're going to get that mortgage approved or not is to actually put in a mortgage application. And there could be some other factors that this calculator itself doesn't consider. Though what this should do is give you the confidence to say, yes, it's worth having a conversation with us here at Opes Partners or a mortgage broker or another property investment company as well. Now, we're going to link this calculator down in the description so you can play around with your numbers. Now, if you're thinking, maybe I do have the income to start investing, you've got a couple of next steps. First of all, use the calculator, play around with it. We're going to link it down below in the description. But after that, your next step is to check out the Opes Partners quiz. This is a little bit more detailed and it looks at both the deposit side and the income side to give you a yes, no, or maybe answer about whether you actually are in the position to start investing. Now, you can take this at opespartners.co.nz/quiz, or we'll link it in the description below.